Welcome, everyone, and a good evening to you, or whatever time it is when you're watching this, if you're catching the recording. Welcome to Alchemize with Alanna. Or if this is your first time, this show is where we turn life's challenges into fuel for purpose. Every episode is about transformation, not the kind that looks perfect on paper, but the kind that happens when you face the fire and you choose to grow with it. Today's conversation is a powerful example of that alchemy in action. We're talking about turning adversity into a $10 million business, and not just through grit and strategy, but through healing, alignment, and radical self-honesty. Because when we stop trying to outrun our pain and instead integrate it, we unlock the kind of power that not only builds businesses, but it actually transforms lives. My guest today is Dylan Jahraus, and her journey is one of resilience, growth, and authentic connection. She grew up with a father battling drug addiction for over 25 years and a sister whose tragic high school accident left her permanently brain damaged. Instead of letting those experiences define her, she used them as fuel to build freedom and purpose in her life. That same drive led her to scale her Etsy shop to 1.7 million in sales, and later coach more than 4,500 entrepreneurs to build businesses that allowed them to retire spouses, pay off debts, and care for loved ones. And in just 14 months, Dylan scaled her company, her coaching company, to $10 million without paid ads, which is amazing. And just recently, she hit a record-breaking month of 1.2 million in just October. What's even more powerful is that her drive isn't about chasing the money anymore. It's about what's beyond it, that deeper why behind the work. So Dylan, welcome to the show.
Thank you for having me, Alanna. I'm so excited to be here.
Good. Well, I know you and I had a little moment to connect the other day. So that was, I really appreciate that. Is there anything else that you want to share with the audience that I haven't yet as we kick this off, especially related to the topic?
Yes. Well, I think, everyone has a different type of business, whether it's Etsy or service-based business or brick and mortar. But I believe, all entrepreneurs are fueled by something bigger than themselves. And I really believe I found my purpose in helping entrepreneurs really grow and build despite their circumstances, because the circumstances in life, it's going to keep happening. It's going to keep hitting you when you least expect it. And so I love coming alongside people while they're building, and I get to do that through Etsy at this time. Yeah.
Beautiful. Yes. I mean, those circumstances, as you know, is like you said, we just never know when they're going to come, when they're going to hit us, what they're going to look like, and what the impact is going to be. And it's really a matter of how we handle it, right?
Right. Yeah. So that is something that I've loved to do over the last few years, coming alongside people. People go through, all these different unexpected things: divorce, loss, losing jobs, medical issues. There's something every day because of the number of people we've worked with. There's something every day, and being able to help them push forward instead of letting that have more control and power over their life than it already has is really my mission at this point.
Well, and you're a great example of that. So audience, as you're listening in, definitely comment, ask us questions so that Dylan and I can address them. And if you're catching this after and watching the recording, we'll check back, okay? So as we dive in, I do have a question for the audience to reflect on first. I'd love to hear from those tuning in. What's one challenge in your past that has shaped your drive or your purpose today? If you'd like, drop it in the chat. You might be surprised who else might relate to it. So Dylan, where I'd like to start with you is many don't realize that behind every strategy and sale, there is self-work, and there's a lot of it. Sometimes, a tremendous amount. So you've said before that your business became a reflection of your healing. How did your personal journey shape the way that you lead and you build today?
Yeah. So, when I started my Etsy shop, I was a young military spouse. We had just gotten married to San Diego, and at that point, there was not much corporate e-commerce in San Diego, and remote work wasn't really a big thing back then. And so I was, doing all these side hustles, and my self-worth really was tied into my career accomplishments and climbing the corporate ladder. So now without that, I felt like my feet were really not on the ground. And I was doing all these side hustles, and Etsy was just one of them. And, I think testing and trying different things is super, super important. And going all in, that's my one regret with Etsy. I wish I would have gone all in and really believed in the power of the platform a little bit more, had confidence in my past experience to translate that into Etsy. But something that I hope people realize is that the sooner you kind of start building something, even if it's on the side, I honestly think that's probably the smarter way to go. It is not waiting till you're at this point of desperation and you've like lost everything, or you really need to have to make something work. Start building something on the side, because you never, know when you might want to like turn that on a little bit more, or have the option to. And I think, financial freedom, people always use that buzzword, financial freedom. What does that really mean though? And I believe, I believe it's having options and knowing that, okay, if everything fell apart, I know I could do this instead, or I know I could quit that job, or I know I could, pay off all of our debt tomorrow if I wanted to. And so it's about having options.
I love that. And what you're bringing attention to is the fact that today we are very much in a multi-gig economy. And I am totally in alignment with you on people really asking themselves, what's a second way I can bring in money or make an income? What's a third way? What's a fourth way? I've even done that in my own coaching business. And there's things that I'm developing behind the scenes to be able to do that. So it also brings out a creativity besides the fact from a financial point of view. If and when you need it, it'll be there, so that you're left with nothing, right?
Exactly.
Yeah. So another thing I wanted to ask is that, so for a lot of entrepreneurs, success becomes a mask or a way to just kind of cover up what's unhealed. In fact, what I notice about people is they'll really dive into, talk about going all in. They'll really dive into their career and they'll distract themselves. Sometimes it's a good distraction because the pain of whatever it is that they're going through, it can be too much and it's hard for them to function. And so it gives them something to focus on, gives them purpose in essence. All that to say, whatever it is that needs healing is still there. It's still kind of bubbling underneath the surface. So what helped you see that there's a connection between emotional growth and business growth?
Yeah. So growing up with a sister who had a lot of medical challenges, I was like an overachiever. And I do feel like, the way I got positive attention was being the daughter people didn't have to worry about, or, having the great grades, being the athlete, getting leadership opportunities. And I was, finding that approval or almost, I don't want to say love, because my parents loved me unconditionally for sure, but I really thought that, I wanted to make them proud so much. And so finding, kind of disconnecting from that a little bit more as I'm building something, I know they're proud of me no matter what. And I kind of, in building my own business, especially on the coaching side, I think the goals kind of started to shift and become a little different. So whilst the satisfaction, initially it was like, wow, I can't believe we're hitting these big numbers and things. It kind of quickly changed into different KPIs, you could even say. And yeah, right. Can you relate to that a little bit?
Absolutely.
Yeah. So instead of, go ahead.
Well, all I was going to say is, and if you don't allow yourself to evolve with what those KPIs that are kind of calling out to you that they want to become, you're going to be your own obstacle.
Right. And so, getting that approval or I'm proud of you, it's not from hitting a number. It's, I found, wow, like the best thing I could do in this world that people would even if I'm going after admiration, would be helping people and making an impact. And how can I help the most people with the gifts I've been given or the experiences that I've had to go through? And so finding that purpose, I mean, most people, especially in the addiction space, I'll say, aren't super transparent, like that they've been touched by addiction in some way, whether it's a spouse or a parent or sibling. But I find that there's been so much healing for myself to find purpose in having gone through that. And now also being able to help people who they would never open up about it if I hadn't said that. And a lot of people think when they're going through things that, all right, like this, everything hit the fan and I'm going to pause on what I'm working on. But just knowing that, hey, I can be an example if I'm transparent and saying, hey, my dad just overdosed last week and I'm still going to show up for you guys because I'm showing you the example that we still show up. We still show up even if something bad happens. So there's been a lot of healing through that personally, and just there's always purpose when you can help someone through that pain.
What you're also pointing to, if someone were to ask me if you could describe coaching in one word, it's self-awareness, because then that, spurs off into everything. And that's such a beautiful example of that. And being, transparent. And, we're now in a culture where I think vulnerability is more acceptable, whereas generations before it was something to protect. And luckily we don't have to protect it as much. I'm not saying, be a complete open book. You don't have to share everything. But when you do, it's, people, it allows them to be compassionate and empathetic.
Right. And then it also makes it relatable. So even in the side of building the brand, I look at some other very polished looking coaches in the space, and I look at their engagement and it's very low. And it's very low because people might not feel like they're relatable. Or what do I have to even interact with this person about? Do we have anything in common? They don't get me. They don't get what I'm going through. They're in this, making a ton of money. Their circumstances are different. So what I like to bring into our brand and our business is, hey, like my kids just screamed in the grocery store too. And like, I'm literally in it with you guys. And hey, if I can do it, you can do it. So it's almost, I think when you're a coach, it helps to kind of keep your feet on the ground in that way of, hey, we're still going through it. I'm still having challenges. And this is how I'm navigating life and business in real time.
Yeah, it's the real and the raw. And I love that because, and you know what, there's as difficult as these last few years have been, and it's been very transformational in our culture, I think there's some silver linings. And one is, when COVID hit, I still had a full-time role at a global tech company, and I was facilitating workshops for teams. And prior to COVID, it was all in person. And all of a sudden we had to go virtual. And because of the location of where I was, which was in San Jose, Northern California, I was working with a lot of the engineering teams, and they don't like to turn their cameras on. And so here I went from being in a big room with people to facilitate a workshop for all day to transforming that into a, say, 4-hour workshop virtually. It's very difficult to facilitate people when I can't see them. I can't even see their face. And so I started to make light and say, hey, I don't care if you're having a bad hair day. I don't care if you haven't showered and you're wearing a baseball cap. I need to see your face, because prior to COVID, I would see all of you. And this way I can at least see the facial expressions, and I can see your engagement if you're questioning something and that sort of thing. And all of a sudden it would be like, and I would see the cameras come on. It was really kind of cool. And there were a few people that would say, like on this note, they would say, oh, well, I'm breastfeeding right now while I'm working. And I'm like, you have full permission to keep your camera off until you desperately need, like as much as you need to, or like, oh, I have a child in the background. it's like, do what you need to do to take care of yourself. And as much as possible, I'd love to see your face. So I think it made us more human.
Yeah.
If you know what I mean. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. And being human is the way to build trust. And I think to have that type of like rocket ship growth that we had, it was about seeming so relatable that I'm just like you. And if I'm just like you and I did it, you can do this too.
Yeah. Exactly. Yeah, exactly. Okay. So based on this first topic of healing, one more question. So if someone is in that place where their business is feeling heavy or disconnected, where can they start to recalibrate it with who they're becoming? Because we're constantly evolving, not just who they were when they started.
Yeah, I love that question. I would say a big thing that I believe in is more is not more. And more, when you build something, we tend to pile on more and more and more. And it's more layers, more people, more tasks. And sometimes, what you did to get, let's say, your first $100,000 or whatever it might be, that's not necessarily what's going to get you from 100,000 to 3 million. And so shedding some of the things that you did in the beginning that aren't scalable, that don't serve you, that aren't the best use of your time or the most profitable action steps you could be taking, that will free up your energy and focus for what you should be doing now to get you to the next level. So I always like to think about it like Olympic athletes, right? When you look at what should I be focused on in my business? Well, what stage of the business are you at? Are you, just kind of getting in shape and you can't even run a mile? Or are you like super athlete and you should be looking at what those Olympic athletes are doing now? Look at, what they did to get where they are now, not looking at what are they doing now, because your workouts shouldn't be like what they're doing now. You're not even there. So it's like not adding more and more and more. Like I like to add one thing, take one thing away. And that, I think that's so important. People are scared to do that.
Yeah, they are. And this reminds me of, well, I'm kind of going through that myself, like this next stage of growth. And there's 3 questions I love to share with clients that I'll share with you right now that can help grow from one stage to the next. And I had one client in particular who went from 180,000 in revenue, very small profit margin, to 4.5 million in like 4 years. And we asked him these questions at different stages of the game, but it's what needs to change, what do you need to let go of, and who do you need to hire, because you can't do it alone.
I love that. Yeah. And sometimes it's, at this stage, I hired these people because I thought that's what I needed. And then I think I need to keep adding more people. But sometimes it's like that role isn't important anymore, or it could be absorbed into this different full-time role. And it's sometimes reworking who is doing what. And maybe we don't need someone even doing that. And instead, it's more profitable to hire someone to do this completely different thing. So just constantly revisiting that and checking in like quarterly, or at least I would say, because things happen so fast.
Oh, so yeah, very quickly. And something else that I appreciate that you shared with me when we spoke the other day is that what shifted for you was when you realized the satisfaction wasn't about the number anymore. It's about who you were building with and why.
Oh yeah. Yeah. And that's the thing. Like on Friday night, it was Halloween. We just hit this record month, and you guys, I was exhausted. We went trick-or-treating, and then we go to Panda Express. My little kid sit down, and I felt like I couldn't even stand up. And it was like I hit this wall, and it's like, wow, we hit this record month, and I should be so happy and energized right now. But I was exhausted, and I was proud of the people. I wasn't excited. The finances doesn't matter. If we had done half as much, but the team had come together in that way, I would have been just as thrilled. And so just keeping in mind, like, it's not the money. Gosh, I feel like once you're over 100,000, like, and you don't have to worry about food and shelter and things. There's, I think, a little bit of a diminishing return there. And then where do you get the excitement from and the motivation from? I think it's really team and seeing what's possible. When you have an idea, you put the people in the places, and we all make it happen together. And it's kind of like that athlete sports mentality, right? Solo sports versus team sports. Look at the people who win. What do they do when they win? They like celebrate with the team, or they're just holding the medal by themselves. I'd rather be on the team. Yeah.
Yeah, 100%. And it's going from the what now to the now what. That's what it's like the transition of that.
Yes. Yeah.
I
Yeah.
love it.
And especially with the team, it opens more doors too. So building a team, now it's not all on you. You are maybe more of the visionary, but now the possibilities just open up significantly because they might have skills that you don't have. And it just opens more doors that you couldn't open on your own, which is exciting.
Yes, absolutely. Okay, so audience, another question for you. What's one reason beyond money or status that truly fuels what you do? Either just write it down for yourself, or if you're willing to share it in the chat, share it in the chat. But okay, so where I want to go next is as a very creative CEO, and I went back in your history of your Instagram account, and it was fun learning more about you and your journey. You turned a handmade Etsy shop into a multi-7-figure coaching company. So I've coached clients through different levels and growth stages of their business too. But like you said, what got them from one stage won't get them to the next one. So let's talk about the leap that you went through. So in being in business for over 10 years, but only 3 in coaching, you're already hitting massive numbers. So what do you think is working now that's allowing for that kind of growth and momentum?
Totally. Hands down, being more brave and having more courage when it comes to hiring. And I think in the past, when I first started coaching, all I knew was e-commerce. So my goal when I started coaching was to make $40,000 a month. That was my goal, to cover basically what I had been making on Etsy. I still had the shop, but I had outsourced all of that production. So I was like, let me try to match what I'm doing in coaching with what I was doing in Etsy. So, then it gives me more options. Okay, well, we did that within a couple of weeks. And I realized, oh my gosh, like, what is this? Internet money? Like, is this real? What's the potential here? And I never trusted that it would continue. For some reason, I thought, wow, like this was lucky, make hay while the sun is shining type of thing. And so I screw it up. It was, gaining another 100,000 a month. We're 6 months in, we did 600K that month. And it's still just me and my husband. And he works full time on a submarine. And we have 2 kids at the time. And so I went to a $20,000 2-day mastermind, and there are 20 people there. And I said, this is my situation. What do I do? And they were like, well, they started clapping. And then they were like, you need to hire an operator. Like, you waited way too long to hire. And I realized, yes, because what if this all falls apart? Then I'd have to fire them or something. And so it was not trusting that it would continue, not trusting myself that, hey, like, you're capable of building something and sustaining it. And so that was like a big, big lesson learned. And I waited way too long to hire. And that, hiring, I'm not perfect. I think it's one of my biggest weaknesses, but I still have to face that fear and do it.
Yeah. I have another past client that I helped her get over that. She waited many, many years to hire. And through the coaching, we dug underneath the surface to figure out what was holding her back from it. And there were some belief systems, some actual experiences that she had. And she also, wanted to make sure that she was being a good manager and leader. And so we did a lot of coaching on it. And now she's got a team of people. So, it's growing through that. But quickly, I just wanted to shout out to Stacy. Great to see you on here. And thank you for sharing that. Yes, purpose is something that fuels you too. And thank you, Jesse, also in terms of making sure that people feel seen and visible. Those are really good ones. So, okay, so you talked about building a scalable machine that is also lean, like very lean, 95% organic with, oh my gosh, 70% profit margin. Incredible. and you did this all without paid ads. So which, this is super rare. So what strategies or decisions made that possible?
So a couple things. I am not the smartest person in the room, but I do feel like I can win on consistency, and consistency is my superpower. And so I will not quit when other people would quit. And a lot of when it comes to organic growth, it's about consistency. And if people who aren't consistent with content, whether that be on Instagram or Pinterest or YouTube or a podcast, right, they're not going to see a snowball of growth. It's a start and stop, and they never build momentum. So I was a blogger in the past, and that's actually how I met my husband. He randomly found my blog, and it was a whole thing. But I knew I could be consistent. I was doing that for 8 to 10 years, and consistency really is what I applied to my organic growth strategies. So I started on YouTube long form content, because giving away lots of information that other people charge for is a great way to build trust. And it makes people feel like, wow, what's behind the paywall if she's so generous with this free content? And so long form YouTube videos, I literally prop my phone up on an Amazon box. I did one a day. My goal was for 30 days in a row. I made it 21, and then I got pretty sick. But
yeah, but there's still 21 days. That's a feat. Yeah.
Yeah, and within that time, we scaled it to 1,000 followers, 1,000 subscribers, got monetized, and we already had people wanting to buy the course that I didn't have yet. So YouTube, that's how it started. Translated onto the podcast, then Instagram.
Amazing, I love it. Yeah. Okay, I'm making some mental notes myself.
Yeah.
So, all right. And then something else that you mentioned was that when you doubled your client base, I love this, that it also doubled the chaos. So what does that chaos look like behind the scenes, and how are you leading through it?
Yeah. So I think with online education, there's a couple ways to go. The one that's the most scalable is by selling some course, just having a course that people buy, and it's all self-paced. You can, have one person or 100 people, and they're still kind of doing it on their own. I don't feel like that serves people in the best way. And I'm sure you in coaching, the power of personal feedback and customized feedback. So I was very specific in wanting to go the coaching route, because what mattered to me was results. And I wouldn't feel like this was worth my time or their time if they're not going to see results. So I went the coaching route, and that's not scalable. You can't just double your client base. And remember, I was at about 500 students, and I was the only one coaching them when I realized this is not going to work out. And sure, I could raise my prices or, try to throttle things back or only open certain times of the year. But then I had people who were upset because they wanted help. And so I couldn't, it's like, I can't please everyone. And you feel all this pressure because someone's going to be mad at me. And that's how I felt. So I actually had a mentor show me how to integrate other coaches into the business. And we now have 19 coaches on our team. And I swear people love them more than they like me. So that worked. Yeah, that worked out.
Well, hey, wait a second. They're a reflection and a representation of you. And I would imagine that the way that you're vetting them to be a part of your team is pretty specific.
Yes. And they're phenomenal. They're actually all people who've had gone through the program and become incredibly successful. And they're doing it as a way to really give back. And so it's a really fun, another sub team on the team. But, doubling the number of clients, in order to keep fulfillment and the results and the outcome at the level of excellence that we wanted, it could not be only me. So you have to kind of decide, do I serve more people or do I serve less people to maintain the quality? And there's give and take. Yeah.
Well, and you bring attention to something else that's really important. Feeling the pull of trying to appease and please everybody that wants what they want from you. Of course, they're going to want that from you, right? But the reminder of, and I have to tell my business owner, founder clients this all the time, is, wait a second, you get to define what your business looks like, what you want to create, which might mean, yes, disappointing somebody, but that's not the intent. And people figure it out. They'll either stick around because they see the value in it, or they'll go to somebody else because they know what's best for them. And yet you'll have others that will gravitate towards you because they'll align better with where you're at now in terms of what you have defined for your business. So yeah, totally. I call it honoring yourself.
Yes. Yeah. And I think that translated as I grew into choosing my clients a bit more, and not just saying, if you want to sign up, sign up. And I learned in a very, it's kind of brutal because not everyone is the right client for you. And being okay with realizing like, oh yeah, it's best to just turn this person away, direct them to the free resources on YouTube. And yeah, that's kind of what we had to do.
Well, and just like clients, not everybody's meant to be on your team. And there's a great question of like, can you discuss how to choose your team? So just give us a little tip or two about, what are some of the specifics around how you make sure, that this person is right to represent our brand?
Yes. So a couple things that I did, I hired someone in operations and then an executive assistant. So the executive assistant, the idea there was to kind of take some of those lower dollar per hour tasks, and it wasn't even low dollar per hour. These were super important things that they were doing. So that was like my first hire 3 years ago. And, she really became kind of an expert, and she thought like me, which is exactly what you want in that role, because they're your right hand. You lock arms with them and everything. And then the leader in operations that we hired was basically kind of like the yin to my yang, you could say, kind of opposite, which was good because, like I'm not a techie person. They were a very techie person. So that was a great match in that sense. So yeah, finding people who counterbalance your strengths, looking at what you're doing that really you should not be doing, like someone else should be doing. Your time should be spent on maybe a task that only you could do. And then couple of my favorite things for interviewing, just to get kind of tactical here, not putting your job description through ChatGPT. I really think that kills attracting the right people, honestly, right now. And so really personalizing that. Customizing benefits. We customize benefits for people all the time. And that really makes it feel like we want them. And then with the test projects, I love doing a good test project. Something that won't take someone more than an hour, but that will really show the skills. And my big thing is I do not give a due date on the test project because I want to know what they would do.
That's interesting. I love that. And that I don't think people or leaders or managers, founders are thorough enough in the interview process. I often will poke holes in when I'm working with somebody that's in the midst of hiring and they're getting frustrated. I'll say, okay, how are you doing this? What questions are you asking? How are you approaching it? And I'll poke holes in their process. I'll be, because otherwise you're going to make a bad hire and then you're going to have to do it all over again, right?
Yes, 100%.
Yeah.
And
all right.
One thing I do want to mention one thing right now, the job, like at the time of this recording, the job market's very interesting. We have a couple roles that we've been hiring for. And I think there's been a lot of layoffs and things. And the job market, I would say it's great for getting tons of applications. But one thing that I have learned from hiring is when someone's been on the job market for a little while, sometimes their standards go down a little bit. So if they were sitting at, a couple 100,000 before, they've been on the job market 6 months, and maybe, they're applying for something for 100,000. Okay, short term, it might feel like, wow, they're overqualified, and that's so lucky that I get this value. But long term, they're not going to be happy with taking a huge pay cut. So I want to say, like a lot of times, what we're seeing right now is people being willing to take big pay cuts, because they just really want to get something and lock something up. But long-term, like I've never seen that work out. So I would, if you're hiring right now, just kind of have that honest conversation with people.
I love that. That's a really, really great tip, actually. Yep. Perfect. All right. Well, for the sake of time, I want to move you into this last area that I wanted to chat with you about, which is the shift from hustle to alignment. So when success stops being about doing more and starts being about doing what moves the needle, like being really specific about what's going to create movement forward. And I've had to learn this lesson too, because I've been encouraged, to do all the things, posting every day, videos, lives, direct messaging, create this coaching program, create a free masterclass, networking, like all of the things, right? Some things have worked and some things have not. And it doesn't seem to be, and you kind of said something about this earlier, it doesn't seem to be like a one size fits all, like a lot of marketing gurus insinuate. So, with this, you've built some pretty amazing big things and you've done it in alignment. So a word, and this is a word that gets tossed around and sometimes it actually drives me a little crazy. Like, what does that really, really mean? How does it really translate? So how would you define alignment now compared to the hustle mentality that you started with?
Yeah. So alignment, oh boy, I feel like you have a definition of alignment that's probably really good. I guess for alignment for me, I know when I'm in alignment because I'm excited about what I'm doing. And if I'm procrastinating or putting something off, or this never gets done and I just keep like pushing it, I know it's not something that I feel really good about necessarily, or I feel like it's a priority in my gut. I might know it's not a priority. So I would say being in alignment is having that list of, okay, these are all the ways I could grow the business. What am I the most excited about at the moment? And instead of diluting your efforts and going like, 10% effort on 10 different things, you're going up against people, like let's say it's YouTube, and YouTube is one of 10 things you're doing. Well, you're going up against people who that's their 100% effort. So how are we going to compete there? How are we going to stand out? So I like to look at, okay, what am I the most excited about? I'm going to go 100% on that this month, master that, get it going, do it to excellence, and then I'll move on to the next thing I'm excited about. And if this, if it works, then I can outsource it, to someone on the team, or, that's kind of how I approach things, priorities.
I love that. And it's, well, what I'm hearing in that too is sort of like that checking in with yourself on like that full body yes. like your whole body's like, yes, I need to do this, right? And then also noticing, I'm a stickler about language. And so like noticing the kind of have to, should sort of energy, if you will, like noticing if that starts to show up too, or if you hear yourself think those things, or you hear yourself say those things out loud, just take note, right? In terms of making those kinds of decisions. Yeah.
What I've noticed though, I think sometimes people misconstrue alignment and fear. Like I think sometimes people are afraid and then they say, well, it's not in alignment, but they're just afraid of failing at something. And so I do think it's, the self-awareness you talked about is so important there.
Absolutely. Yeah. Well, and you may have heard of this, especially being a coach, but the fear as an acronym of false evidence appearing real. Another one that I love is face everything and rise.
That's good.
Yep, absolutely. But yeah, people don't realize how much fear might actually influence or impact how they make decisions. And the two areas that I would say are, my area of expertise, one is decision making and the other is hard conversations. It's situational coaching. And sometimes I'll kind of hold up a mirror with compassion for a client and say, is this what's going on here? And they'll be like, oh, yes, but it brings this new awareness. And so then they can make a better decision because there's what they didn't know was kind of behind. There's another way of explaining it. It's sort of like this thing that's like back here. It's always there, right? It's like, you're like, there's this block. Like, I know there's this thing, right? And it's right. But when you pull it in front of you and you take a look at it, you can address it in a really powerful way.
Yeah. Yeah. I think that's great way you put that. Really great.
Cool. Very cool. All right. So, speaking of alignment, so what does it look like when leaders do operate from alignment, and then how it shows up in their energy, their priorities, their leadership? I mean, you already talked about it in terms of feeling excited, but what might that look like? Also, some other examples.
Yes. So I think your team can definitely tell when there's alignment and when there's not, because I think it impacts your ability to influence and lead, and influence the team as in get their buy-in, get them on board. And when there's full alignment, when you really have conviction that this is the right way to go, and I'm really excited about this path forward, and this is my vision, and I'm like fully aligned, I can see this and how this will play out and benefit you, I think the team buys in. And when the team buys in, the results are totally different. If there's resistance on the team, if there's not buy-in, like the vision's not going to happen. So I think influence, having the ability to influence, and the energy that you bring in order to make the influence more powerful and consistent is really important there.
Absolutely. Yeah. Well, and that brings attention to that, you're not really a leader unless you have followers. You have people that want to be there with you. They're excited. They'll go to bat for you. And it's really about building trust on the team, but it's also, that inspiration, like being inspiring to them in some way. Yeah.
And it's also knowing like what's in alignment for them. I have a sales manager on our team who has like a really great family, and some of them are on the West Coast, some are on the East Coast. And I know time with her family is really important to her. And if that is impacted negatively by what she's doing with the business, she will not feel in alignment with her role, for example. So while alignment for me is important, I'm only going to have a team if they feel aligned themselves with, what we're trying to do here.
Yeah. Well, and that also, when people, I think people think that they can compartmentalize. We really can't. In fact, I think it's even harder these days since most of us are working in some virtual capacity. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Right. So, there's this whole like work-life balance topic, or really it's about work-life integration, because what happens at work is going to affect you personally, and what's happening in your personal life is going to affect how you show up at work. And so, again, like just being completely honest and authentic with yourself, and then, being in an environment, which it sounds like very much that you've created for your team, which is amazing. Psychological safety, making sure that people feel heard and understood, and that you're a leader, that's somebody who cares. Like the word care or caring, it was interesting. It started to come up when I would facilitate an exercise around trust with teams. And the word care started to come up. And I thought that was just absolutely beautiful.
Yeah. I don't think that is talked about when you're starting a business and hiring people. What they're looking for, they want to know that they're cared for, and that they're truly cared about, and their well-being and future is cared about and safe with you. Yeah.
100%. Yeah. Okay. So for the entrepreneurs that are listening who are tired of the grind, what is one practical step that they can take today to start shifting from hustle to harmony for themselves?
Yeah. So I would say one thing you could do is look at your calendar and start deleting stuff. To be honest.
Yes.
Yeah. Are you aligned with that?
I'm aligned with that. Yes.
Yeah. And start deleting stuff. There's too many meetings that don't need to be meetings. There's too many, blocks for things that don't really need to be blocks for things. Block things that will protect your energy. So for me, one thing I did was My creative energy is the best in the morning, like my ideas, my problem solving. So my assistant, she blocked, I think it's like 7 to 10 a.m. for like creative block. I think that's what it's called. And I don't take like sales calls. I don't do meetings that I just observe or listen in on. And I shouldn't even attend those. Those are things that we've removed too. So just start taking stuff off the calendar. If it's not a profitable thing on the calendar, and if it's related to work, I would second guess that.
That's really great advice. I usually offer the same advice. I call it also not only blocking, but also scheduling in white space, which is just for yourself. It might not be anything for something specific, but yet it's there just in case, especially if you start to notice that meetings go long, you've got fires to put out, stuff is showing up, or you're going through a stage of your business where there's some hard to predict things. So having that blocked out white space can be really helpful. Another tip is, especially because of, everybody going virtual because of COVID, I've noticed that people tend to schedule their meetings like back to back to back to back to back, and they don't give themselves space in between. Whereas before, let's say, for example, if you are working at a company and you work for, like where you might have a campus and you might drive to meetings in between or walk to a different building on a particular campus, what have you, that was built in. And then once we went virtual, that got lost. And so, it's really important to look at, like you said, what can you say no to? What can you delete? Be really mindful of how you're spending your time. And something else is like, say, for example, you've got a bunch of 60-minute meetings, right? Back to back. I would say really check in with yourself and see if you could have that same discussion in 45 or 50 minutes.
Yeah.
Right. It's amazing. Once people have an understanding of time allotment, it's amazing how much they can get done in a shorter period of time, because all of a sudden their brain will kick in and things will move much faster.
Yes. Yeah. What is the principle? Work expands to fill the time allotted. Have you heard that?
Say that again.
Work expands to fill the time allotted.
Oh yes, absolutely. Like, it'll fill it if you allow it to. Yeah.
Yeah. And I think, the last 15 minutes of a meeting, sometimes it's nothing's productive is happening. So being the one to say, all right, I think we can wrap it up.
Yeah.
That's good. Yeah.
I'll give you 10 minutes back, right? That kind of thing. Yeah, yes. Absolutely. Oh, and for leaders also, another tip is, and it's great that you're leading a team as well, and you probably figured this out on your own, is there were certain meetings that you started to notice, do I really need to be here? Or can I have my sales leader be there or somebody else on the team? And it becomes a development opportunity for them. You get to up-level them, right?
Yes. Yeah, they step up to meet the opportunity. Yeah, I love that.
Absolutely. Cool. Okay, so really quick before we close, audience, here's another question for you. What part of your story are you still resisting that could actually become your superpower? Because that's where the alchemy begins. That's where it starts to happen. So when you stop running from what hurts you, you can start building from it. So go ahead and just write that down for yourself. And you don't necessarily have to act on it yet. So just because you wrote it down doesn't mean you have to take action on it right away. But just acknowledging it can also start to create a shift. Okay. So Dylan, anything else you want to share that we haven't talked about yet that is just right here for you?
Oh, I mean, that was a very deep question, by the way. I feel like people should chew on that tonight. Write that down. That's a very deep question. But yes, as far as, anything I'd like to leave the audience with is it's just recognizing that, I really believe that winning is a choice. And in this world with the internet and opportunity and ideas and how fast things can change for you, like, I really believe you do not have to stay stuck in your current situation. And winning is a choice. You can choose to push past discomfort to learn something new, whether it's a new skill, whether it's building a new connection or relationship, or, go intern for free for someone who you admire. Like there's for anyone who's hardworking right now, like anyone with grit and work ethic, like you can have a completely different life than what you have today. And I just want to empower everyone here to remember that. And no matter what you're going through, don't let the circumstance, don't let the hardship have more power than it already has had over you. Push past it and really, remember that like you don't have to be the constraint of what's possible for yourself.
I love that. Yeah. Well, and how can people find you, connect with you, learn more about you?
Yes. So if you want to see some of our organic growth strategies and also some of the realness of what it's like, running an 8-figure company, follow us on Instagram, Dylan Jahraus. That's where I'm at. I do a lot of stories. I post a lot of stuff where, my social media manager, she's like, I can't believe you posted that. So
getting in trouble. I love it. Yeah.
Yeah. The raw, the real, it's all over there. And love to DM as well. So send a message, and I'd love to hear what kind of business you have and just give you some support.
Beautiful. Beautiful. All right. Well, thank you so much for being here. It's been a true inspiration. I'm even taking away a few things from this conversation too. And for those who are listening to this episode, I have a gift for you. In every coaching session I do, my clients will sometimes ask for help on either a hard decision or a hard conversation. And some conversations can change everything in just one conversation, and if you're brave enough to have them. So I created the Conversation Prep Toolkit. It's a complimentary guide to help you step into those moments with more intention, less fear or hesitation, and words that can actually land. You can download it by signing up for my newsletter. Jesse's going to go ahead and share that in the chat. And this is a resource that I wish every conscious leader had before their next big conversation. So please don't miss this one. And also, if today's conversation resonated with you, I'd love for you to stay connected. You can, like I said, just subscribe to my newsletter and learn about future episodes and get some tips, and also learn about my podcast. Also, like and follow my business page so that you don't miss future lives. And also share this episode with someone who is ready to turn their own adversity into power. Because when you alchemize your story, you don't just change your life. You have the potential to change the lives of others around you too. I'm Alanna Levenson. This is Alchemize with Alanna, where we turn messy into magic. So thank you so much for being here.
Thanks for having me. This is fun.